I have really thought about this scene for a long, long time. And if you know the lore of Zelda, it really is like one of the crux of the whole series. Timeline aside, I'm not going to discuss that. I don't want to open up the can of worms. But if you know, it's just the crux of where a lot of the timeline stuff originates. But I'm talking about this case, the child Link in the adult Link, meaning the inner child has been always a fascinating subject for me because it reminds me that we all have an inner child of sorts that needs some sort of therapy, needs some sort of comfort and security. And it's easy to forget that, especially when you see an adult and you're like, yeah, you're grown, act grown. Easy to say that, hard to do. And I think this scene really shows a lot of the reasons why. Link, being a child, and then all of a sudden aging 7 years because he had to wait at the uh, Chamber of Sages and wait there until he was ready to go out and save the world. And Rauru, this sage of light, he essentially kept Link in a state of kind of out of time. And when Link recognizes he's an adult, he is, you know, understandably surprised. But he does not have the experience of growing up. He does not have any of those experiences of what it means to be an adult. And we say adult loosely. He's like 17. But, teenager, adult, however you want to call him, he is still grown 7 years without experiencing those years. And this is why I really think this is an important scene because it shows that despite his appearance, he is still very much a child. And I think that shows throughout the rest of the game because he is given so much guidance. First from Rauru, who gives him the Medallion of Courage, which I would say courage because the yellow kind of reflects, in my opinion, how the solar chakra is depicted, which means courage. I will do a video on chakras probably later. But for now, I just think it's definitely symbolic and purposeful that he would get this medallion first, and that it's yellow. But besides that, he gets this guidance from Rauru. If you know anything about the lore, he's like a shapeshifter, and the theory, and I'm pretty sure it's confirmed now, is that he is that owl who always helps Link in his adventures. The owl that has the name Kapora Gabora? Kapora Gabora. I can never really say it well. But he essentially gives Link that guidance that he needs as his sort of father figure now that he's grown up but still doesn't know what to do. Which I think we could all kind of relate to that feeling. And it's telling too because Link, as a child, he of course lost his first father figure, the Great Deku Tree. When he died, he didn't really know what to do except follow the instructions that the Great Deku Tree gave him. And that being said, he went off to the world, and now he is becoming more and more of an adult. So that brings us to his other parental figure, and this might be, arguable, but I would say it would be Sheik. Sheik, if you don't know, spoiler, again, spoiler for a decades old game, but once again, be warned, this is a big spoiler in the series, or at least in this game. Sheik is Zelda in disguise. And throughout the game, Zelda, as Sheik, helps Link by teaching him music, by giving him weapons, all those things, tells him where to go. Very much his parental figure as well to give him guidance. Then we have the sages. And these sages each, I think, give him exactly what he needs as a way to grow more and more. Surya, his childhood friend, which I definitely see as his innocence being lost, also gives him that kind of reminder, hey, don't forget we're still friends, and don't ever lose that childlike sense of wonder. And she even gives him that, her medallion, her power. I think almost a way to say, no matter how grown you are, always retain that sense of childlike wonder. And I think that's definitely important as you grow to retain that innocence as best you can, or at least that sense of fun, if not outright innocence. Then we got Darunia, who is very much fire energy, and I like to see Darunia, of course, the Gorons, as like the dwarves from Lord of the Rings. Very much a strength energy, I would say masculine energy for sure, given this their proponent to just be everything big, strong, all those things, and that is exactly I think why Darunia calls him brother, kind of giving him that courage, that strength to be a man. And then we got the other side of it, Rudo, who was his betrothed when they were young. Rudo, being a young princess, gives him that medallion and kind of wants to marry him. Of course, that doesn't happen, but still helps him. And if you know anything about water and water energy, very much linked to emotions. And I definitely think this is very telling that Rudo, who loves him, gives him that sort of like romantic love, is his feminine side. And I think that's exactly what he needs to balance out the Goron's masculine side that he also developed. And I think that's a balance that he needs to grow because, of course, when you have masculine energy or feminine energy out of balance, you get too much of one thing, and that doesn't lead to good results, typically. Then you got Impa, which helps with Link's kind of shadow side. I think it's very telling that Link meets his darker side, Dark Link, in the Water Temple. And I feel like that's more like a primer, like, hey, this is your dark side you're fighting now. And then the next temple is him fighting the darker side of what I would say as the world, or even adulthood. And it's a lot of shadow work here, hence the Shadow Temple. Having to face fears, having to really face what it is to see the ugly truth. And I think it's definitely purposeful that he gets an item, the Lens of Truth, to see the fake walls and the real walls and essentially see the truth. And I think that's definitely symbolic for this, where as an adult you grow up, you have to see what is real and what's fake, who will help you, who will hurt you, and learn your intuition, learn your judgment um, as you develop it. Then, of course, you have the last temple, Nibiru, the sage of that temple. And I think very much it's not very hard to see that sensual side of adulthood represented in this temple. But of course, it's not just sensual, it's not just about sexual energy, it's also about that spiritual energy. A lot of times people don't recognize sensual energy as creative, as also being more spiritual. And I think Noboru definitely has this attribute for her with her flirting, but also she is a warrior and she helps Link almost every step of the way to get through the Gerudo Temple. And so she becomes a sage to kind of show Link, hey, this is a side of adulthood that can either help or hurt you. But if you know how to control it well, then it would only do you good. Then, of course, you get to the end where Zelda reveals herself to be Zelda, no longer Sheik, and to help Link defeat the authoritarian side of adulthood, which I definitely say is symbolized through Ganondorf. And I think even further, Link gets help from Zelda when Ganondorf turns into Ganon, which is like the beast side, right? Which is, I think, what happens when adults don't grow in that spirituality, don't grow in balance of all these attributes that Link learns along the way. And Zelda, at this point, I think, is almost equated to Link. Like, this is where they become partners, as opposed to her being a parental figure. Now she becomes his partner as equal because Link has grown into a man. Link has really excelled into adulthood by becoming who he was meant to be. And then, of course, you got Zelda turning him back into a child at the very end, since he never had his child experience. And I think that's very telling, especially because in a lot of spiritual texts, sages and all these like self-actualized people often are depicted kind of childlike, often are silly and have fun. And I think that's exactly on purpose that Link would turn back into a child, because it shows that he not only needs to revisit his child and that's his reward, but also showing that even when you become an adult, you're not leaving your childhood behind so much as you're synthesizing it. You're saying, hey, this is still a big part of me. And now I can use the childlike sense of wonder to be a better adult and to be wiser for it. So I really do think that's exactly what this scene taught me, and really the whole game. But this scene definitely important to show that Link has always been a child throughout the game, and he's learning how to be adult bit by bit. Thank you for listening. Hope you enjoyed the video, and feel free to give a like or subscribe or not. I don't know. We're adults. You do you. Cheers.